I plan to go back to Pakistan later this year. We have general elections scheduled, and I'm hoping that we can build enough public opinion for the transition from dictatorship to democracy.
And of course, you're doing this against the backdrop of charges that you might face should you go back there. But one government spokesman, I believe today, correct me if I'm wrong, said that he was sure that you could work out a deal with your lawyers.
Well, we are working on the legal front, and I've worked for the last 10 years. There's no conviction against me, and a person is innocent unless proved otherwise. So I'm hoping to go back and contest the elections.
And there are also reports that you are brokering a deal with General Musharraf, President Musharraf, and that might allow him to remain as president and you as prime minister should you win.
Well, there's been a negotiation between General Pervez Musharraf's side and the Pakistan People's Party on how we can facilitate a transition to democracy. The PPP core concern remains the restoration of democracy, which means fair elections. And we still haven't reached a stage where the Pakistan People's Party feels satisfied that the next elections will be fair. So much depends on the ability of General Musharraf to trust the people of Pakistan and allow the people of Pakistan to choose a government that can undermine the forces of terrorism.
I mean, one can see why General Musharraf might need you, but why do you need him?
Well, General Musharraf has a lot of international support. He brings in the money that comes to Pakistan and helps our economy. And we feel that if there is no dialogue, then maybe the elections will be rigged. Maybe emergency will be imposed. Maybe our people will suffer more.
And he's in favor of a dialogue, from what you're saying?
Both sides are engaged in a dialogue, but we're still looking towards whether we can work out an understanding.
Well, let me ask you about what's happening in Islamabad at the moment in the Red Mosque, which is a madrasa in the middle of the middle-class neighbourhood. It's a situation that many say President Musharraf allowed to take place when he really should have seen it coming. But it really symbolises for many the divide that is taking place in Pakistan between the middle classes, perhaps more secular, and the hardliners.
Well, the Red Mosque symbolises to me the failure of the policy of appeasement. Every time the militants are in a corner, instead of prosecuting them or arresting them, there's a ceasefire or a peace treaty or an amnesty. They get out of the corner, they're more emboldened, and they come back with a vengeance.
So how would you deal with it? How do you resolve those two issues of being on the side of the war on terror, supporting the United States, but also resolving this issue?
Well, I don't believe one should sign peace treaties with terrorists or with people who are fanatics. For example, now, the Red Mosque issue, the government is negotiating with the cleric, and the cleric is asking for amnesty for himself.
And I take it you wouldn't negotiate?
Well, I wouldn't give amnesty.
Well, what would you do?
Well, I think that the cleric, I compare this to a hostage situation when a plane is hijacked and the experts come in and they know how to do the negotiations in a way where the human shields or the hostages can be taken out and the militants isolated. So I think the important thing is not to give the amnesty, not to give them space to return in the future with a greater backlash.
There are those that say between the dismissal of the Chief Justice Chowdhury earlier this year and what's now taking place in Islamabad with the Red Mosque is an indication that President Musharraf has in some way lost his Midas touch. Do you share that view?
General Musharraf, this is a test for General Musharraf, because the Red Mosque is the tip of the iceberg. There are many more seminaries that have come up in the last 5 years, and they're really like military headquarters, housing irregular troops on a monthly salary, using innocent civilians as hostages. And unless General Musharraf can get a grip onto the militancy, Pakistan could be in deep trouble.
And how would you end this particular siege at the moment? You'd say you'd negotiate, but you wouldn't provide an amnesty, and they're saying on the other hand that they don't want to surrender, they prefer martyrdom.
Well, they have to be arrested and prosecuted, and if they choose martyrdom, well, it would be unfortunate for them and for everybody else, but at the end of the day, they can't blackmail a government by saying that given to our demands, or we are going to unleash suicide bombers. So it's like a hostage situation for me, like a hijacking. I'd call in the experts, negotiate with them, but not give them any amnesty.
Whoever is leading Pakistan after these elections is still walking a very fine line between support for the United States and dealing with the hardliners in the country. I mean, it is a very hard line to negotiate, assuming that you continue to support the United States.
But today, the hardliners are not a threat to the United States alone. Today, the hardliners are a threat to the state of Pakistan. Our army has lost lives in the tribal areas of Pakistan. Our army is being killed now. A colonel was just killed yesterday. So it's the militants are taking on our army, and army has to win. The state has to win. We cannot allow the militants to take over our state. We have to draw a line in the sand and say, this is it. We're not going to give in to them. They cannot threaten us with suicide bombings. They cannot threaten us and our citizens anymore.